I'm going to tell you about my first boyfriend. The boy who gave me my first kiss, and also my first experience with abuse. At the time, I was young and didn't really understand what a healthy relationship looked like. In the beginning, everything seemed perfect. He was attentive, always checking on me, always wanting to be around me. He acted protective, and back then, I thought that meant he really cared. For the first few months, I felt special, like I mattered to someone in a way I hadn't experienced before. But around the fifth month, something started to feel off. It wasn't anything obvious at first, just small moments where my instincts told me something wasn't right. I remember one particular day clearly. He had taken me on a roller skating date, and everything seemed normal at first. We laughed, skated around, and eventually sat down to take a break. That's when two of his friends showed up. The moment they approached, his entire demeanor changed. The warmth in his face disappeared, replaced by something cold and unsettling. The way he looked at me suddenly felt unsafe. Then, in front of them, he told me to kiss him, with tongue. I froze. I told him I wasn't ready for that, especially not in front of other people. I tried to say it calmly, hoping he would understand, but he didn't. Instead, he grabbed my face and forced his tongue into my mouth. I remember the shock more than anything else. I was small, but somehow I managed to push him away just enough to break free. I ran, straight toward a more crowded part of the skating rink. My heart was racing, and I told him to stay away from me while I called my mom to pick me up. When I got into the car, I didn't say anything about what had happened. I was confused, embarrassed, and honestly still trying to process it. I was young, and part of me was afraid of getting in trouble just for being in that situation. So instead, I stayed quiet and decided to avoid him at school while I figured out how I felt. For about a week, I managed to stay away from him. Then one day, he approached me again while I was standing with a group of friends. I didn't even notice he was there until he was right next to me. Being that close to him again made me instantly anxious. He started talking like nothing had happened, just casual, meaningless conversation. I didn't engage much, and I think he noticed. That's when his mood shifted again, just like before. He looked at me with this intense disgust, like I had done something wrong. I was holding one of those old portable CD players at the time, and out of nowhere he grabbed it from my hands and tried to shove it into his bag. I yelled at him to give it back and tried to pull it away. That's when he punched me in the face, hard enough to knock me to the ground. I remember the shock, the pain, and then the tears. Everything happened so fast. Teachers got involved, and we were both sent to the principal's office. His father was a well-known football coach in the community, and because of that, he managed to avoid serious consequences. He only got detention. That was it. After that, we didn't see much of each other, and eventually we went to different high schools, which I was incredibly grateful for. It felt like I could finally move on. Then, during my sophomore year, I ran into him again, completely by accident. I was in the drive-thru at Taco Bell, about to pay, when I looked up and realized he was the cashier. We made eye contact, and my stomach dropped. I pretended not to recognize him and rushed through the interaction as quickly as I could before driving away. I thought that would be the end of it. But later, he found me on Facebook and messaged me. The message was awkward and unsettling, like nothing had ever happened between us. He even tried to flirt, mentioning that he thought he saw me at Taco Bell and asking for pictures. Reading it made my skin crawl. I blocked him immediately and told my sister about it because I needed someone to know. At the time, I tried to laugh it off and move on with my life. I dated better people, stayed away from trouble, and put that part of my past behind me. I didn't think much about him after that, until recently. My sister sent me a news article, and when I opened it, I saw his face. My first boyfriend. The same person. According to the report, he had attacked someone with a weapon at a public venue after they tried to defend a woman he was assaulting. Reading it made my chest feel tight. It had been nearly 10 years since we dated, but suddenly everything came rushing back. The comments under the article mentioned that he had a history of violence, especially toward women. Assault, stalking, things that made my stomach turn. And in that moment, I realized something that still unsettles me. I had been close to someone truly dangerous, and I didn't fully understand it at the time. I can't predict the future, and I didn't know what he would become. But looking back, the signs were already there. The control, the anger, the lack of boundaries. It was all there from the beginning. It's a strange and chilling feeling to realize how people like that can pass through your life without you fully seeing the danger until much later. The thought that things could have gone worse stays with me. All I know is this: I got out when I did, and I truly hope I never cross paths with him again. Emily lived in a small, quiet town where life moved at a predictable pace, and over time, she found herself craving something different. One evening, out of boredom more than anything else, she decided to try online dating and downloaded Tinder. She began swiping through profile after profile, half interested, until one suddenly stood out. The man's name was James. His picture showed a handsome face, piercing blue eyes, and a subtle, confident smile that seemed almost too perfect. His bio was short, but oddly compelling. Looking for an adventure? Swipe right. Feeling a spark of curiosity, Emily swiped right, not expecting much. But within seconds, they matched. Almost immediately, James sent her a message asking if she would be interested in a late-night walk in the nearby woods, a place people often claimed was haunted. The idea was unusual, even a little unsettling, yet it excited her in a way she couldn't quite explain. Without giving herself too much time to reconsider, she agreed to meet him there in an hour. By the time the clock struck midnight, Emily found herself standing at the entrance of the woods, the darkness stretching endlessly before her. James was already there, leaning casually against a tree as if he had been waiting for a while. When he greeted her, his tone was calm, but there was something about his presence that felt slightly off, something she couldn't immediately define. Still, she ignored the feeling, convincing herself it was just nerves. Together, they began walking deeper into the forest. With each step, the outside world seemed to fade away, replaced by an unsettling silence, broken only by the sound of their footsteps. The trees grew denser, blocking out most of the moonlight and casting long, shifting shadows across their path. After a while, Emily began to notice faint whispers and the soft rustling of leaves, even though the air was still. When she asked James if he could hear it too, he simply smiled and told her the spirits of the woods had started to notice them. Before she could respond, a sudden, icy gust of wind rushed past them, instantly knocking out their flashlights and plunging everything into complete darkness. Panic surged through her as she reached out for him, calling his name. But there was no answer. It was as if he had disappeared entirely. Now alone, Emily stumbled blindly through the forest, her breath uneven and her heart pounding loudly in her ears. The darkness felt suffocating, and the strange sounds around her seemed to grow closer, more deliberate, as though something was circling her. The whispers became clearer, almost forming words, brushing against her mind in a way that made her feel watched. Then, suddenly, a voice called her name from the darkness, low, cold, and unmistakably close. She froze in place, unable to move, her fear rooting her to the ground. Slowly she turned, And that's when she saw them, a pair of glowing red eyes staring directly at her from the blackness. Instinct took over, and she tried to run. But before she could take more than a step, something unseen grabbed hold of her, tightening around her arms and body. She struggled desperately, but the grip only grew stronger. The voice returned, louder now, echoing with a chilling, almost amused tone, telling her she should never have come and that she would never leave. Her screams pierced the silence, desperate and raw, but no one was there to hear them. The forest seemed to absorb everything. Her voice, her fear, and finally, her existence itself, until nothing remained but silence. The following morning, a hiker happened to pass by the entrance of the woods. Curious about the place, he decided to explore a little, unaware of what had taken place just hours before. As he walked deeper along the same path, something caught his eye, a faint glimmer lying on the ground. He approached cautiously and discovered a phone. When he picked it up, the screen lit his face, revealing an open Tinder conversation. The name James was still visible at the top. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he looked around. Realizing there was no sign of anyone nearby, the forest stood still, quiet and indifferent, as though nothing had ever happened. From that day on, stories about the woods spread more widely, and locals began warning others to stay away. People spoke of the place in hushed voices, recalling the story of a young woman who had gone there in search of adventure and was never seen again.